Author Interviews. I am Tracy S. Phillips, and today I'm speaking with Gregory Lee Renz. First, I want to give a huge shout out to our audience to say thank you so much for listening to our podcast and helping us to become an award-winning podcast. We are now on Spotify and YouTube and Substack and iTunes. So thank you so much for checking in. Fire Captain Gregory Renz was involved in a dramatic rescue of two little boys from their burning basement bedroom. He received a series of awards for this rescue, including introduction into the Wisconsin Fire and Police Hall of Fame. After serving the citizens of Milwaukee for 28 years, Greg retired to Lake Mills, Wisconsin, and he exchanged his turnout gear for a writing desk to pursue his passion, storytelling. The award-winning Beneath the Flames tells the story of a young firefighter battling personal demons, and the second book, Beyond the Flames, is a highly anticipated and recently released sequel, which today we're going to talk about both books. So welcome, Greg.
Well, it's great to be here, and thank you for reading both books. It's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Oh, the stories are just so incredibly heartbreaking and touching and on such a personal level with all of your characters. They were really hard to put down.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Um,
that.
and Greg, you are the real deal. When writers talk about adding authenticity to their stories, I think of you because you have that background and then you're putting that into your books. So tell readers a little bit about you.
Okay, so I spent 28 years in the Milwaukee Fire Department, and that's after getting turned down to get into med school. I was a student at UW-Madison, wanted to go to med school, but got turned down, and sometimes getting turned down for something that you probably really didn't want to do anyway is not the worst thing. So joined the Milwaukee Fire Department, spent 28 years on the department. And over those 28 years, oh man, the experiences, it's incredible. Working in the inner city in different parts of Milwaukee, tons of experiences, worked with some of the most incredible storytellers over that period of time. Also, people in the firehouse, because that's really a part of our culture is storytelling in the firehouse, because we have a lot of downtime. So we entertain each other with stories, and they better be darn good. Otherwise, you get their stuff thrown at you. So it's a tough crowd. So I learned a lot about storytelling just from some of these folks who probably couldn't write a proper sentence, but for oral storytelling, holy cow, some of these people were just incredible. So along with that, I worked with some really colorful characters along with those storytellers. Fire departments tend to attract very colorful characters. And when I say colorful, I think I'm being kind because some of us probably shouldn't be out in public, but these are also the same people who you want crawling into a burning building to save your family. And I also worked in the inner city. So I had story, I had character, I had setting, everything you would need to write a novel. Because I was an avid reader and I thought, this couldn't be all that hard. The only thing is, I lacked one minor thing. And that was I didn't know anything about the craft of creative writing. Just kind of a minor thing, but at least I was smart enough to realize that. So I started going to taking courses through the continuing studies program at UW-Madison, going to the conferences, going to the workshops, had some just amazing mentors there. Lori Shear and Christine Dismet were a couple of them. And thankfully, they were very patient because when I started out, I did not know anything about creative writing. Stuff would come back all marked up in red. It's like, right, really got to work on your grammar, punctuation, syntax, point of views all over the place. But these stories are incredible. Please keep writing. So I
Yeah.
had, encouragement, but I also knew that I had a lot of work to do. So after only 10 years of that, I published my first novel.
Yeah. Well, 10 years. I think it takes that long for new writers. It took me that long, and I've heard a
Yeah.
lot of other authors say the same thing.
Yeah, you really do need to learn the craft as you're writing it. At least I did, because like I say, I really didn't understand story structure, any of the stuff that really goes into writing something that people can read and really relate to.
Yeah. And so you were in Milwaukee for that whole time?
Yes, yep. I grew up in Madison and moved to Milwaukee to join the fire department. So those 28 years were on the Milwaukee Fire Department. And like I say, it was once I got into it, I loved being a firefighter. And I look back and I was so glad I did not get accepted into med school. Especially, I have a few doctors in the family, and they warned me that it's like this medical profession isn't exactly what you think it might be. It's a tough profession. And on the fire department, look at all the stories I got. Of course, as a doctor, I suppose you could get plenty of stories too, but being
Probably.
on the streets, that really brings home. And obviously getting immersed in different cultures, because in Milwaukee you've got the culture of the inner city, you've got at that time the culture of the South Side, which was predominantly Polish, which then became Hispanic. So you have all these different cultures, and Brady Street was the Italian area. So yeah, I mean, you really learn a lot about people and cultures by being on the fire department.
Yeah, I bet. I bet you see all kinds of things.
You do. Sadly, I would say most of the responses, at least major ones we go to, don't turn out all that well. And it's nice, like you mentioned, I was awarded the Hall of Fame for the rescue of two little boys, and those types of things are somewhat rare. So I was fortunate to be the one in the right place at the right time. And it was one of those things where I did everything wrong at that fire because I went in by myself. I didn't have a hose line, all that. But it boiled down to, had I not done that, those children would not have survived. And looking back on it, I know many of my brothers and sisters would have done the same thing. So I just happened to be the one in the right place at the right time. Plus, I was getting older, so they like to give you awards when you get old and push you out. And you've been here long enough. Here's an award. Go.
That's interesting. So clearly you are very well qualified to write these books. So what was the one like specific incident that inspired you to start writing fiction?
Probably the thing that stuck in my head the most was two little girls who lived across the street from an inner city firehouse. One night they came over about 2 o'clock in the morning. Their mom was being beaten up by her crackhead boyfriend. And of course, I had to call for the police to come for get social services involved. So I sat with them and chatted with them for a while. And now, growing up in Madison, you don't really, at that time, there was really no inner city, place where there was extensive poverty like there was in Milwaukee, place we would call the core. And so I just sat down with these two little girls, started talking with them. They were around 8 and 5. And they were telling me stories of what their lives were like in just the crushing poverty and violence in a matter-of-fact way, as if this is just the way of the world. And when the police came and they were getting ready to go, I asked them, "So you guys got to be to school in the morning?" And I thought, oh my gosh, it just hit me right here. It hit me really hard because I remember first times going into school and seeing these kids with their heads in their desk and judging them and thinking, why don't you guys work harder? You can get out of this, this horrible inner city that you're living in right now. And when they shared that, it just hit me that, whoa, got no right to judge these two little kids. Those two little girls stayed in my head for years until I started taking the creative writing courses and started writing scenes with them in. So basically, the first story was inspired by those two little girls, and like I say in the beginning, it's like I hope I did them justice.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So your first book opens with a young man trying to save a neighbor's child from a burning house. Um, and this character, Mitch Garner, is the primary character, the protagonist of the whole first book.
Mhm.
Um, he's got some serious baggage.
Yes, he does. Well, it's like when you're taking these writing courses, they tell you it's like you really need to beat up your protagonist early in the story over and just relentlessly attack them. Some people were, when they were reading the first drafts, how can you be so mean? Oh my God, what you're doing to that poor guy. But anyway, so his mother committed suicide when he was a boy, and he blames himself for that. He thinks his father blames him, hates him for that. So he's carrying that baggage. And he's a volunteer firefighter, dairy farmer, and so there's a fire at a neighboring farmhouse, and he's the first one there as a volunteer. It does not turn out well. And
Yeah.
now we add that onto his guilt over the suicide, and he is just torn up with self-hatred. He's got to do something to figure out how to live with himself. So he joins the Milwaukee Fire Department, and it's assigned to the very busiest firehouse in the heart of the inner city. And it's based on one of the busiest firehouses in the whole country, 6,000 some runs a year. So he's way over his head, obviously, and he doesn't know. He's never been around that kind of poverty and violence and all that stuff. The old timers don't like him, and they're trying to push him off the job because he's not one of them. So he's got all of these things going against him, and the story really revolves around he and Jasmine, the 12-year-old inner city girl on the verge of joining a street gang, and the story revolves around the two of them having to overcome their basically their prejudices to save the other one's life. So that's how it all kind of plays around that theme.
Right. Yeah. And prejudice goes two ways in this book.
It does, yes.
So I noticed too, in both the books that you use an older character, and for both the main characters, it was their father
Mhm.
who I thought this was really interesting that that generational prejudice showing up in these older men and how you dealt with that in the books. I thought that was really, really cool. Could you share a little bit about that?
Well, sure. That's, I think, especially in my generation, this baby boomers, a lot of us are dealing with aging parents at the end of their lives. And it's incredibly challenging, frustrating, can just, some people have had it a lot worse than I. I didn't really have it that bad. I took care of both my mom and dad at the end of their lives. Things got frustrating, and there's times where you get angry, not necessarily at them, but the deterioration, and you're mad about that, and sometimes you let it out, and then you feel guilty. It is just there's so many emotions that get wound up in this. So I kind of wanted to explore that, and really, when we start out with both of those guys, it's like they're somewhat of an antagonistic force. They're, both protagonists really don't like their fathers all that much, but they really have to take care of them. It's that Midwest thing where we take care of our family no matter what. And I think the character arc in all this is over time, and it's sad, but in many families, we really don't talk about serious issues until it gets close to the end. And that's where the arc comes in. It's like both the protagonists have an awakening when they realize why their fathers were the way they were. Not that it was okay, because both these fathers were pretty brutal in some ways
Abusive. Yeah.
and abusive, but now they're not a cardboard cutout character of this abusive father. Now it's like there's more meaning to it. So I wanted to make sure that came out.
Yeah, absolutely. So in book two, Beyond the Flames, it's a different firefighter, a bitter captain named Lee Garrison. And Lee has PTSD from Vietnam. Tell us a little bit about Lee.
Okay, so one of the reasons I wanted to write this story was I wanted to explore PTSD and the effect that just uh, coming in, having traumatic situations presented to you over and over and over again as a firefighter, first responder, or whatever it may be. And the reason I wanted to do that was when I published my first book, when I was doing my book tour, I had so many first responders tell me, "Ah, thank you for writing a book that shows what our job is really like." Not that dramatized version, the Hollywood version where we run into burning buildings with our turnouts wide open and grab kids and rescue them, but the actual trauma that and how it affects us on a daily basis. So
Yeah.
that was the reason I really wanted to go into that. So in this book, first one was a coming of age story, a young man that needed to learn about life. And this one is a 56-year-old captain toward the end of his career. And he's had a really difficult time. Like I say, he had PTSD from his time in Vietnam. He was in a Marine Force Recon unit, which goes behind enemy lines, did some things that have stuck with him. And I should point out when I talk about PTSD, for me, I would rather call it PTSI. It's an injury, not a disorder. It's like when you
Yeah.
think about a broken arm, it's not a arm disorder, it's an injury. So when you have a brain disorder, it should be an injury also, and we
Oh,
should
I
treat it.
agree.
So that's just my perspective, but the way I look at it,
Absolutely.
especially getting to know a lot of people that have gone through this. So yeah, I wanted to really explore how this affects first responders, firefighters, especially in this situation. And so of course, Lee is not only suffered from that, but he's had a real tough go of it on the fire department with some tragic losses on the department, betrayals, and he's at wit's end. It's just getting worse and worse. He's spiraling, and he's got a 9 millimeter gun in his dresser drawer. Looks at it every morning and wonders, is today the day? And he's close. He's close. And one day he rescues this little girl from a school fire. And with PTSD, you just push people away. You don't want anybody coming into your life. So he tries to push her away, push her away. And she will not have it. So she keeps showing up on his doorstep with cookies and wants to clean his house, and finally breaks through. And he lets himself get pulled into her life a little bit at a time. And then when he finds out that her older sister is being prostituted by the Hell's Disciple motorcycle gang, he dedicates himself to taking them down and rescuing her, which is going to be one tall order.
Yeah. And so this little girl came from book one.
Yes. Mhm.
And like you said earlier that your inspiration was these two girls that you met.
Mhm.
And we meet the girls in book one, and I'm looking for their names on my question sheet and I can't
Jasmine
find.
and Alexis.
Thank you. Um, and Jasmine is the older girl. She does get pulled into working for a gang. I don't, and it it appears that it's not of her own choice.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, so yeah, I mean that's and that when you're on the fire department, police department, you come in contact with a lot of the human trafficking, and it's we some of these young girls drug overdoses, and you realize what's going on, and might go into the system and then come out, but it's with poverty like that, you have a lot of runaways. They just run away from home, and obviously these predators are just waiting on that and pull them in. And so we saw a lot of that on the fire
yeah.
department,
And then
and
they
that's what,
brainwash them.
absolutely right. And then
Yeah,
they get to a point where it's like they feel like it's their choice to be there. And
yeah.
so, yeah, I
And
really wanted to bring that out because that was really prevalent when I was on a job. And from what I've heard, it's no different now. The human trafficking is still a big issue in all the major cities. And it's heart-wrenching on a personal basis. And I think that's the power of storytelling is when you read about it in newspaper, it's like, oh yeah, that's terrible. But now when you read a book and you get to know this person and it's personalized, I think this is what grabs you by the heart and you go, oh my God, that is horrible.
it is.
And I think that's why I love writing fiction so much because I can bring those types of things to the reader and take them into that world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're definitely not afraid of hitting those dark subjects.
No, I'm not. When I first started writing scenes, Christine Desmet said, "You're fearless on the page. Don't ever stop."
Yeah,
And I thought, you know what? It's like you really do. Donald Moss, in one of his books, he's one of my favorite writers of books on writing, and he says something to the effect where write that which makes you the most uncomfortable. That may be some of the best writing you ever do.
yeah,
And I think the validation for writing, like the first one, obviously, when you're writing, and I think we'll probably get into that, but writing about another culture, that can be something very, very challenging.
yeah.
So there again, you kind of have to be fearless and go, yeah, there's probably going to be some people going to attack me over this, but you know what? This is the story that has to be told, and I have to tell it in this way.
Right, absolutely. So let's get into that a little bit.
Okay,
Your very important secondary character in both the books is Miss Burney, and she if she's not the girl's mother.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, the girl's mother, she's in prison for killing her boyfriend. And so Miss Burney is actually adopted the younger one and was foster mother to Jasmine until she turned up missing. So yeah, Miss Burney, it's interesting because Miss Burney initially in the first drafts was a walk-on character. She was just going to be Mitch's landlady. And some of my beta readers were saying, I just love Miss Burney. I like the way
yeah,
she talks and I just I hope there's more of her. So when I started focusing on that, she really started taking over the story, and she is the most beloved character. I mean, whenever I do a book talk anywhere, it's like, who's your favorite? Oh, Miss Burney. Yeah, she's
yeah,
the
yeah.
character. So
Absolutely.
and when I first started writing this, and I was working with editors about this. I was warned about um, writing about other cultures, and that you might get some blowback because you're this white guy writing about race in the inner city. But I thought, you know what, it's all the point of view of a white firefighter. So I would never step in the shoes of a black firefighter and try to tell
Right.
their story. That would not be authentic. But it's totally authentic for me to write from a position of a white firefighter and what they're observing and how they're getting involved in that. And so, I push forward, and I should, if I can find a quote from Nick Butler here that kind of gave me the validation I needed.
Oh,
Um, Nick Butler said, a novel that, like its protagonist, relentlessly presses on into fiery and controversial terrain where many other writers fear to tread. So it's like, yeah, you know what? I think I can live with it. And I got to say, I have a lot of African American readers, and nobody's ever said anything. And then I did make sure that it was not offensive to the inner city community. And I ran, before it ever was published, I ran the manuscript by two retired fire chiefs who grew up in the inner city, two African American chiefs, and said, read it. Let me know if there's anything here that's going to be offensive, or if I'm totally off, off the line, over the line on anything. And by this time, it had gone through four professional edits. It's like I was just meticulous. I wanted this story to be as perfect as it can't be perfect, but as good as it could be.
right.
And so by this time, everything was polished, but I was ready to change anything that needed to be changed. Both of them sent it back and said, "No, you nailed it. You nailed the culture. You nailed what it's like. The dialect, which there again, a lot of writers tend to." Uh, be a little cautious about dialect. And, I had one editor down at a conference in Florida tell me, just get rid of all the dialect. People don't want to see that. And I
Not
thought, how do I
true.
make it out? How do I make it authentic? This is the inner city of
Right.
Milwaukee. Oh my gosh. And I
Right.
really did want to explore how, the different ways people talk. I mean, the inner city, there's a way of conversing, and Southside Milwaukee, the Southside Polish people have a little different way, and the farming community. So it's like these three, it's like I really wanted to explore the differences in dialect, and also show, especially with Miss Bernie, who I feel is the wisest person in that story, that even though she talks ghetto, that's what Mitch and his brother call it, talking ghetto. Even though she talks ghetto, she's the smartest person I've ever met. So I
Yeah.
really wanted to bring that out. So you explore these things, and hopefully it resonates, and you don't don't go over the line. I should say early drafts, the dialect was a little thicker, and I did have to pull back on some, and
Did
I
you?
realized that, so that was no problem.
Yeah, no, I don't think glossing over it the right way to go about it.
No, I don't either.
Absolutely. And it was very authentic to me. Uh, in Indiana, my mom lived in Indiana for years, and she had caregivers who all spoke the same way. And I was just like, I was right there with my friends again.
Oh, oh
So
gosh,
it
cool,
was perfect, I think. And
excellent.
I think there's no way that you can make, like I said, gloss over that.
Right.
Yeah.
And even the profanity, and there's been a few people that mentioned the profanity, but there again, when you're talking about inner city street gang, this is just the way people talk. And
Right.
I just had a book talk in Waterloo, and a lady said, raised her hand, and she said, I love your stories, but do you have to have so much profanity in there?" And I said, well, I understand that it's going to be offensive to some people, and that's
Yeah.
fine. I mean, if it really bothers you, I totally understand. And I did have one lady, after I published the first one, get a hold of me, and she said, I was at your book talk in Sun Prairie. Phenomenal story. She said, I was so excited to read your book, and after I read it, I was so disappointed. This is in an email. And she said, the way those firefighters talked and acted, she said it was disgusting. I can't believe people would act like that and talk like that. And she went on to say that her son was a captain on the Boston Fire Department, and that she checked with him and asked him whether he talked like that or saw people act like that. And he assured her, no, they did not. And I would assure her that her son was lying.
Yeah, I know. I was wondering her son is being truthful.
No, no, I can, yeah. And I've never been on the Boston Fire Department, but I know firefighters, especially in busy companies. I'm sorry. I mean, we let it fly. I mean, you
Yeah.
have to, because the stress is at incredible levels.
and I think I, I mean, I hear the same thing about police officers because they see so much
Mhm.
negative stuff with
Right.
life and people that they have to have they have this dark sense of humor
You do, yeah.
to
And
get
it's
through it.
we only understand it too because a lot of that dark humor you would never want to go out in public and share some of that stuff because people go, "What? How can you do
Yeah.
it?" But
Not
we kind
everybody
of
can
get it.
relate to that, you know?
Right, 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 right. And
But
yeah, some of it does go over the top, and it's like, yeah, okay, that's pretty much unacceptable.
but again, your story is so authentic and and it gives people a real sense of what it's like.
You know, and that I this what was cool, and I think this is another example of the power of story. There was a lady that came up after a book talk, and she looked like she was well into her 70s, maybe 80s. She says, "I've lived on a farm all my life. All I knew about the inner city was what I read in the newspaper and saw on television." She said, "I thought these were terrible people. How do people live like this? My God." And she said, "Then I read your book." And she said, it just hit me that I had no right to judge these kids growing up in that awful environment. And she said, it really opened my eyes. And I thought, if that isn't the power of storytelling, I don't know what is. It's like,
Yeah.
so I'm going to keep being fearless on the page.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yes. Um, so let me check here. I said I wanted to ask about adding to your character's turmoil. Um, we discussed the aging parents,
Mhm.
generational prejudices. Um, well, tell us about your process a little bit. Are you a
Okay.
pantser
And
or a plotter or?
Yeah, so my first book, I had a pretty good outline on it. And then when I really got into the creative process of writing and the characters came to life, yeah, the outline fell apart. And I went from being a kind of an outliner to definitely more of a pantser. So I would say definitely far more a pantser, just with ideas of plot points when I start. It's like I got this idea of this is going to happen and this is going to happen. Normally, I have no idea what the endings are going to be in either of these because like in the first one with when I had it all outlined, it's like I had this ending. And it's like, no, this is not working at all. So that totally changed. The second one, I had a little bit of an idea, and it's interesting because this third one I'm working on, and we'll talk about that a bit. But I would, I really hadn't thought about the ending on this, and like I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I woke up and there was the ending coming to life, and it was one of these endings that brought tears to my eyes, and I thought, okay, if just the thought of this brings tears to my eyes, I got to make this work.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know if that's going to happen, but because that could change as I get into the writing. But I thought this was such a powerful vision of where I want this story to go. I thought this might be the first novel I write where I back up from the ending and then work toward it. So,
Yeah. No,
but definitely a answer.
it's hard to do, but I think that you have to sometimes have a target in mind.
Yeah, it's a good idea to have a target. And then if that target moves on you as you get through it, at least you have a direction. You're going in a direction anyway.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, have you ever had a moment of doubt in your whole
Ooh.
writing process? And
Oh yeah.
how did you deal with it?
So after writing the first book, I really got into the marketing because I loved that. I did 60 to 70 events, bookstores, libraries all over the Midwest. I mean, I was going everywhere and doing anything. It's like picking up. So anyway, I was really enjoying that. So for 2 years, I went down that rabbit hole of marketing and promotion, where you just keep exploring this and sending out your pitches, and maybe every 10th pitch, somebody says, "Yeah, we'd like to have you." So it was endless, but I was kind of enjoying it because I do like to get out and tell stories to a live audience. To me, that's one of the funnest things I do. I just have a ball doing that. So I went 2 years without writing. Oh, was that a mistake? Because when that's when people started nagging me, and publisher, we need that second book. We need to get back to those characters. And I thought, okay, that's time. And initially, I really wasn't going to write a sequel. I wanted to write this third book that I'm writing now then, but so many people just love those characters so much. And I thought, yeah, you know what? I think there's more story to tell there. So that's when I decided. So when I went to my desk and sat down, first day, okay, here we go. I'm gonna get started on the second novel. My mind went blank and I panicked. I was terrified. I felt like I totally forgot how to write. 10 years of working on the craft, and it's like I couldn't come up with what I wanted to write. I couldn't get words on the page. And it's like I had the imposter syndrome because the first one, really did so well. Can I even do this? It's like, am I, one and done? And it's, all this stuff coming in. So I struggled. I was really terrified that it's like, I don't know if I can even write another book. But, in the fire department, we're taught to never give up. And you can't go to a fire and go, ah, it's too big a fire. We can't fight that one. Or bad accident and go, oh, that's a bad one. I don't know what we're gonna do there. Let's just go back. So you change tactics,
Yeah.
you never give up. And so that's been instilled in me. And persistence, I think I've always been somewhat persistent. My wife tends to refer to that as just darn stubbornness. But I think that's what kept me in the chair. And look, Christine Desmet was really good about instilling in me that you got to get your butt in the chair and spend that time there no matter what, whether it's working or not work, doesn't matter. You need to get in the chair. So it took me, I think, a good month and a half of working at this and just struggling. The story started coming to life. The new character, Lee, came to life for me. It's like, okay, now, I know Lee now. Okay, I can go with that. And I had, of course, had a lot of characters from the first one that I didn't have to, reimagine. So yeah, it was terrifying. It's like I did struggle. And from a day-to-day thing, there's days where I have kind of a block. I don't call it a block. It's just it slows down. And I know Stephen King in his book on writing says sometimes you just got to wait for the boys in the basement to send something up. So I know I know something's coming. I just got to wait sometimes. And like today, this morning, yesterday, I couldn't write anything. I don't know why. Just the scene just wasn't coming. Sat down this morning and the words flowed. And I think that's the importance of getting your butt in the chair because you have to spend that time for that to come to life. And, sometimes I'll go, one, two, a couple hours where nothing's coming. And then that third hour, all of a sudden it comes. Had I not spent the first 2 hours in the chair, nothing would have come. And now, this is fine for somebody retired to say. So for you writers out there that are working full time, I don't know how you do it, but
Yeah, I don't know how they do it either. It's amazing that they're able to find time.
oh gosh.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I've started asking that question because I know that we all have like a moment of doubt about whether it's about our writing or
Mhm.
about imposter syndrome.
Oh, sure.
And so I think it's really great for people who aren't writers to see that, and also for aspiring writers
Right.
to know that, we aren't always just like, yeah, I'm just gonna write this and publish it, you
No,
know.
I think we're all riddled with constant self-doubt.
I think a little bit. Yeah. So what's next for you, Greg?
Well, I've the first two books were based on my firefighting experiences. So my third one, and it's a book I've wanted to write for a really long time because back in 1970 in Madison, I was 19 years old. The anti-war protests were going on. Really, just a really provocative time period. I mean, it was after the Kent State shootings, so the campus was embroiled in the anti-war protests. Things were getting violent. Police were beating up students. Students were attacking police. It was just an insane time. So I really wanted to explore the power of mob mentality. How people get caught up in a mob, do things that they would never ever do on their own. But with a mob, man, you get carried away with the emotion of this, and you do something, and then maybe a while later, the guilt sets in. It's like, oh my God, what did I
Yeah.
do? So I wanted to explore that. So the story is two people fall in love, a young biker and a anti-war protester who's also a co-ed at UW-Madison. And their two groups hate each other. The bikers hate the anti-war protesters because the anti-war protesters are abusing their family members and friends who are coming back from Vietnam, the soldiers. They're, spitting on them and stuff like that. You hear that? I don't know if any of that was true, but this is fiction, so I can make that up. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's why the anti-war, the bikers had to eat the anti-war protesters because of the way they're treating their returning family members and friends. And of course, the anti-war protesters hate the bikers because they hate them. So you have these two people who fall in love with opposing groups, and how are they going to handle their situation, and how far out of hand does this get, and how violent do things get? How many people lose their lives in this? Because you have
Mm.
to read my first two books. People tend to die in my books.
People, yeah.
And and my wife hates that about it. It's like my second book, and I'm not going to ruin it for anybody, but she got to a point and she says, I don't even want to know if I want to read any more of this. I hate what you just did. But
Yeah.
she lived, once the book was done, she saw the importance of the so-called raising the stakes and all that business, and getting people really involved. And by her saying that was actually good, because that's what you want to hear, that it really affected somebody on a deep emotional level, that they just hated what happened because they loved the character so much.
Right.
So, but there again, fearless on the page. I gotta take it there. Sorry.
Good for you. That's great. And the 70s. Woo, I love the 70s.
Yeah, yeah. I filter in a lot of the music from like the late 60s and 70s. I mean, to me, the
Yeah.
anti-war songs and all that stuff, oh my gosh. And what is it? The Buffalo Springfield song that where they say, if everybody's wrong, can anybody be right?
Right.
And I thought, with the two opposing groups kind of going over the top with what they're doing to each other, is anybody right?
Yeah.
That's kind
Is
of
this book going to have a playlist?
it is, yes, definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Well, I'm really having fun listening to the music too. I have the music of the 60s and late 60s playing in the background as I'm writing, just constantly. So it's kind of and to go back, I look forward to this. Actually, it pushes me out of the comfort zone, because I can't rely on all my firefighting experiences. I mean, I was around in 70 as a 19-year-old, but that's a long time ago. It's like hard to remember stuff. So I've had to do a lot of research but it's kind of fun going back there again to the
Yeah.
dialect of the time, the way people talked again. I mean, I just
Right.
love that whole aspect of it. So it's just a
Yeah.
fun time period to write about. So I'm really having a good time with it, even though some days I struggle like the Dickens.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing today. It was really great to talk to you, Greg. Tell our viewers where they can find you and your books.
Okay, so you can go to Facebook. On Facebook, if you want to friend me, I'm at Greg Renz. And Instagram, I'm Gregory L. Renz. And I also have a web page, and it's glrenz.com. So those are the
Right.
best. And yeah, if you're at a conference, come up and let's chat. I'm planning on being at the Wisconsin Writers Association conference in October. It's a great conference. Anybody that's never been, come on, join Wisconsin Writers. Only costs like, is it 25 or $35 a year, something like that. It's an incredible organization, and that
Yeah.
conference is phenomenal. It's really they're doing great. I mean, they're bringing in some top-notch talent for their talks and stuff. So yeah,
Yes.
so
Yeah,
I'll be there if you
absolutely.
want to come and chat.
Well, great. I hope to see you there because I'm going to try and get over there too.
Oh,
So,
excellent. Great.
yeah. Yay.
And good
All
luck with
right.
your work.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye for now.